So most people treat Claude like a glorified version of Google, where they type a question, they grab the answer, and shut the tab. That's what I did for a long time. If the response looks okay, you call it a win and move on with your day. The reality of what's happening behind the scenes is a bit different because Claude's programmed to prioritize speed above other things. It takes your initial prompt, it fills in the gaps with a dozen assumptions about what you might want, and it spits out a pretty confident response most of the time. This isn't because the AI is lazy, but rather because these tools are trained to be helpful assistants that provide immediate feedback. The issue we run into is that sounding confident and being actually useful are two very different things. So in this video, I'll walk through 3 specific phrases you can drop into your prompt to fundamentally shift how Claude interacts with you. Once you start using these, the AI will start asking you better questions. It'll challenge your logic instead of just nodding along, and it will help you turn your best chats into repeatable systems. You don't need to know a single line of code or deal with any complex technical setups to make this work today. The first technique is incredibly easy to implement, yet it will instantly boost the quality of every single response you get from the AI. The next time you're finishing up a prompt, just add this one sentence. Ask me clarifying questions until you're 95% confident you can complete this task successfully. It sounds simple, but that one line completely changes the dynamic of the conversation. Think about how a normal interaction usually goes when you ask for something like a marketing email for a new product launch. Claude will generate a generic email with a boring subject line and vague body copy that doesn't really speak to your specific audience. You end up with either sending out a mediocre message that gets ignored, or you waste 20 minutes fixing the draft yourself. When you include that 95% confidence rule, Claude pauses and hits you with 4 or 5 specific questions before it ever tries to write a draft. It might ask who the email's for, what the core offer is, or if there's a specific deadline that creates a sense of urgency. After you provide those details, the resulting email is actually ready to send because it has the right tone and the right hooks for your customers. This works because you're forcing the AI to stop assuming and start diagnosing your actual needs. Without this instruction, Claude just fills in the blanks with the most average information available on the internet. By adding this line, you turn the AI into a consultant that gathers the necessary facts before it tries to offer a solution. A lot of people try to fix this by writing messy, massive paragraphs filled with every detail they can think of. But Claude often misses the point because it can't tell which parts are actually important. The clarifying questions method flips that approach on its head by letting the AI tell you exactly what it needs to know to do a great job. Go ahead and try this with the next big task on your to-do list. You don't have to change your writing style or learn a new system. Just tack that one line onto the end and see how much better the conversation feels. After you teach Claude how to ask better questions, you need to get it to start challenging your answers. The biggest problem with Claude is that it stays way too agreeable by default. If you paste in a business plan, a content strategy, or a pricing decision, it usually just summarizes your work and tells you what looks good. While that feels pretty nice, it isn't giving you the hard truths that actually need to be heard to improve. To fix this, you should add a specific line to your prompt. Be my sparring partner and identify my blind spots or weak assumptions. That single sentence flips Claude from a simple validator into a tool that stress tests your thinking. When you paste in that same business plan, you won't get a polite summary back. Instead, Claude will point out the 3 things you completely missed, like a hidden assumption in your pricing model or a customer objection your content strategy ignores. It might even find a dependency in your launch plan that could break the entire project if one small piece runs late. This is a massive win for people at solopreneurs because most of us don't have a team to push back on our ideas. Most people end up making big decisions in a total vacuum, and they don't realize their plan has a massive hole in it until they're already 3 weeks into the work. You can use this for much more than just business plans. It works for any judgment call you have to make. whether this is a service offer, a hiring decision, or a new marketing angle. The goal isn't to let Claude make the final decision for you. You're simply asking it to surface assumptions you're making without realizing it, which lets you move forward with much better information. Now that Claude is asking smarter questions and pushing back on your weak points, you need a way to make those improvements permanent. The trouble with most AI sessions is that even a really productive conversation eventually disappears. You might spend an hour planning a client proposal or mapping out a pricing structure, but the next time you need to do that work, you end up starting from scratch. All that great thinking you did inside the chat window just gets buried and forgotten. To stop wasting that effort, you should end every valuable conversation with a simple request. Reflect on this chat and turn the repeatable parts into a process that I can reuse later. Claude will then look back through the entire history of the conversation to find the specific steps that actually drove the result. It gives you a documented workflow that you can save and run whenever you need it again. A one-off chat about writing a few LinkedIn posts suddenly becomes a 5-step content system, and a single proposal session turns into a repeatable framework for every future client you sign. This is much better than just copying your old prompts into a document because Claude handles all of the extraction work for you. It knows how to separate the specific details of that one situation from the actual underlying structure. So you end up with a clean, usable process instead of a messy transcript. The compounding effect of this habit is huge. Every great conversation you've ever had with an AI that you didn't save is basically a wasted asset. By using this method, you turn every win into something you can build on for the future. 3 months from now, you won't be starting from zero because you'll have a library of processes that were already tested in real-world situations. Once you combine clarifying questions and the blind spots audit with this final step, you aren't just getting better answers, you're building a better system for your entire business. And so to get the best out of these tools, you should stack all three together throughout your next project. You start any new task by adding the 95% confidence line, which forces Claude to ask the right questions before it ever starts working. Once you have a solid draft or a clear direction midway through, you run the sparring partner prompt to uncover any blind spots you might have missed. When the conversation finally produces something real, you use the documentation prompt to pull out a repeatable process that you can use again later. This sequence creates a loop where each step makes the next one more effective for your workflow. And better questions lead to sharper thinking, and that sharper thinking naturally results in higher quality outputs that eventually become your new standard systems. So I've got a challenge for you today that involves taking one task already on your to-do list and simply adding that 95% confidence line to the end of your prompt. You don't need to change anything else about how you work, but you should pay attention to how much the conversation shifts before Claude writes a single word of code or text. Give it a try and let me know how it goes in the comments. And thanks for watching. See you in the next one.